recovery coach training, which was kind of fairly new back in 2012. And it really incorporates a lot of good topics that are involved with recovery. I call them modules. So like some modules would incorporate, what is recovery? Talking about that. I don't think I'd ever really been asked what recovery was for me. I just kind of was like, recovery is staying sober and going to meetings, but really if you look at recovery, you can really write down, or if it's a good journal topic, what is recovery to me, and kind of see what that means for you. And I think the point sometimes is that it's not the same thing as it is for everybody. We might have similar goals, but it's not going to be the same for everybody. And so if I'm going to meetings, a lot of times, there's kind of already a direction in what you should be doing. But sometimes people's recovery can mean different things. And so when we look at it differently a little bit, we can kind of work with somebody and what their goals are and what their strengths are. I mean, and some people don't go to meetings. Some people have different lifestyles that we kind of have to look at. So when we're working with somebody, we want to work with them and not tell them what to do, not be directive. It's going to be more of a strength-based approach. Like, hey, what path would you like to go? What does your recovery look like? And so we get a chance to get to know them. And and then kind of take it from there. The training incorporates motivational interviewing. So we want to motivate people. No matter how many times people have fallen down, it's a matter of getting back up and trying to help them go wherever, help them wherever they're at. We also talk about multiple pathways, which I think is really important. So when somebody becomes a recovery coach, we can be in a particular program like AA or Smart Recovery or Refuge Recovery or Life Ring, or maybe you don't have any support group that you go to. But when we work with somebody, we're going to not tell them what they have to do. We're going to ask them, give them the resources and let them decide what that is. Because some people, it can be a variety of things. Some people like to go to many different pathways. So I think the training itself really opens our minds, and it kind of helps tear down some walls on what we perceive that recovery is for everybody, and really kind of, even for folks that utilize medication-assisted recovery, we have a lot of those folks that come to the trainings, and we get a chance to hear from them how that saved their life, and I know for me that I had a lot of, a doubt, or I didn't quite understand how that whole thing worked, how medication worked, and now I've got a chance to know many people that it's just been a huge lifesaver for them. And so for some of them, they're still on it. For some, they've gotten off. Again, it's kind of to each their own.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's between them and their doctor. And so anyway, I think recovery coaching really incorporates many different people's paths and journeys to recovery. And so we have a really great region that offers this training for free. With our work with NMRE, they actually supply, we contract with them, and then we're able to offer this training for free throughout the northern 21 county region. And part of the training itself, is just awesome. You get a chance to connect with people from all over northern Michigan. It's like a melting pot of people in recovery, and we even have some folks that aren't in recovery that come and get a chance to learn, from them and their experiences, the resources that they have in their communities. Sometimes we have this tendency to kind of be in a kind of a silo. Sometimes when we go into certain pathways, we kind of just stay there and we don't necessarily go outside of that box. Well, this helps us get outside of that box. And that's kind of what we're really trying to work on, is to kind of unify the recovery community. So this is one way to do it. Recovery Notes is kind of another way. Even ever since I've been sober, there's always kind of been this like AA, NA thing. It's like we can't afford, any kind of division between and recovery. We need things that are going to really unify and really incorporate all of us, because strengths are in numbers, and we need everybody's, voice and to be able to kind of give hope to other people in their community. It's the only one condition that really people haven't been too forthcoming about. We're, a lot of times we've been in churches and church basements for 1930s, and some folks are fine with that, and they're, like, hey, at least we have a place to go, and I get that coming from a humbling standpoint, but I can't help but think of how many bars we have on the streets that are very easily accessible. If you go to the back lot, it's a great place, but the centerpiece is a bar, the kegs are right there, and our kids are coming in there, and that's what they see is what's in the community. And I feel like I think the recovery community should be able to have access to recovery resources right in their own community. every community could benefit from having recovery community centers, recovery community organizations, where they can access resources, find things to do. I mean, we all know that a meeting is 1 hour a day. We have 23 left. So for some folks to have a safe place doesn't have alcohol, that has other recovery supportive people there, can be huge for their recovery. It was for me, in Charlevoix. So the whole recovery movement, and I think the big thing about recovery coaching too is it kind of helps people feel more comfortable in being able to promote recovery, that they should feel empowered and passionate about their recovery to be able to share with others in the community. It's kind of like little, lighthouses. Where do people go when they need help? Well, if we're kind of quiet about it, our next door neighbor and they're struggling, they at least have somebody that they know that they can go to. But if they don't know you're in recovery, they're not going to come to you. But if they know that, hey, look, boy, if they were able to do it, maybe I'll talk to them. Maybe they can give me some helpful advice. So it's an important piece I think that we need right now is that people being forthcoming. And there's 25 million people in recovery in the United States. It's a lot of folks. So if we can all get them to speak up, we might be able to make some changes through the advocacy and policy levels, whether it's the state or federal government. That's how all things have changed through, with the AIDS crisis. People had to get vocal. They had to go and they had to lobby on behalf of themselves and go to the city council meetings and state government meetings and to really make sure that they were being heard. And that's how things get changed, is people being loud enough to make that. So I went way on about recovery coaching.
No, you're good. So the first time I heard about recovery coach was from my ex Mona, and she had been clean. And then this was probably 3-4 years ago, and she had been clean like 3 years. And I had just heard about a recovery coach, and I said that to her. I'm like, hey, why don't you? Because she said she couldn't go back to school because she had a felony and this and that. So I asked her, well, why don't you be a recovery coach? And she said, I have a family, and I can't make $9 an hour. And I think things are changing in that way, with going into hospitals and, which I think is a great place, and that's where recovery coaches are needed for sure. I've experienced that. I mean, we all have pretty much. Anybody that's in active addiction or used to be, it's one of those things where we need a buffer there, because the people that don't get it, we don't need that extra pressure at that time when we're at our lowest, is facing, having to go to the hospital or whatever. But I think that's great, and I'm glad that it is changing. And recovery coaches aren't just, oh, now I know it all, I'm going to go talk to people like I'm a counselor. It's not like that. It's more of, hey, buddy, I get it. Let me inspire. And I, like you said, motivate. I like inspire, but it's the same thing.
Right.
To inspire somebody, to me, the podcast inspires me. Mm-hmm. It keeps me going. For some people, it really might be AA meetings. Going to an AA meeting might inspire them to see a newcomer come in and ask them to be their sponsor. Some people that might work for them. That's great. And Life Ring. There's so many different recovery notes. Hey, I'm gonna stay sober so I can get up there and perform this song. And let's have fun and entertain. And now I'm going to open the 217 bar, and there was a place, and it was, I want to say back in March or April, and I can't even remember what state it was in, but they opened up a recovery bar. Mm-hmm. And I remember I sent that link to Joyce, and I was like, let's do it. And she said, okay, I'm on board. I mean, it was kind of a joke, but kind of not. You're absolutely right. We're down in the bottom of a basement, and walking around like, hope nobody sees me going in here. Used to be that way. I really don't care at this point. I'm having fun in recovery. I don't know about you. You are too. Mm-hmm. And why not be proud of that, And people were making a big ado about that, about the recovery bar opening up, and what are they going to do in there, Well, they're going to have fun in there. They're going to have meetings. They're going to do recovery stuff. They're going to watch football. They're going to eat wings, whatever they want to do. Other people can come in too, and fine. But, I mean, why not? Why not put it out there on Front Street?
This is that thinking outside the box time.
Yeah.
I mean, we do. I mean, if we're going to try to get people to want to engage in a recovery lifestyle, then we're going to have to show that there's a lifestyle to be had.
Mm-hmm.
And if people don't even know what recovery looks like, and I'm trying to think if somebody said before, too, is like they were terrified to go to treatment because they had no idea what the hell treatment was going to be like. Like, what am I going to do there? What do you do? So some folks are really taking a risk of, and obviously you need to be kind of somewhat motivated to go take that risk to go into treatment. Only 10% of people even go to treatment. They get professional help for this. So we really lack the visibility in our communities about what recovery, even really is. And so having things that are accessible, visible, that people can, like, well, maybe I can see myself in that kind of lifestyle. At least gives them an idea of, hey, it's not so bad. I mean, when we were in the parade for recovery notes and just in Petoskey, there was probably, 15 of us going down the street. And, sometimes you would see some crowds, and we had this big sign that says recovery notes, right? And you have some people that are looking at you like, I mean, they didn't have a look on their face like, what is that? And then you have some folks that are saying, thank you. Thank you for being here. And that just hits you because that they know. That there are people, they either have, either they themselves are in recovery or they have a family member or somebody that's struggling and they just need some freaking hope, And so I think if we can try to look at things a little bit differently and there's this Rock to Recovery that started in Seattle and it's the guy from, he played like backup for Korn, but he got sober and he goes into treatment centers and he plays, I think he has a group with all the people that are in the treatment center, and by the time that they're done in this, I don't know if it's an hour or so group, but they've actually made a song, and some folks are musically inclined, some people aren't, like myself, but they still utilize every single person, and after they're done, they have written this song. So somebody can kind of give some lyrics about what's been true for them in their recovery experience or their addiction experience, and it all kind of comes together and creates something beautiful. But then they go out and do concerts, in recovery, and they promote recovery as something that's fun. And I have this really cool slide when I do presentations. I mean, when you see this slide of Rock to Recovery, it just looks like fun. They're holding guitars, not beers. We've been so saturated ever since, we're tiny about alcohol and Budweiser, and I had Spuds McKenzie and all those guys growing up, and this is it's supposed to be a culturally thing, but 1 in 7 people are going to struggle with addiction. We're not always told that, but it grabs you. All of a sudden you start to partake in a culturally accepted thing, and all of a sudden addiction kicks your butt. And then all of a sudden you're kind of looked down on as like, wow, you should have been able to control that a little bit better. You should have been able to keep that under wraps and add a little more willpower. And, boy, really threw their life away. It's looked at as something that you've personally done, and that's so not true. I mean, that's where the stigma comes into, that misconception of it's a personal thing, it's a moral failing or a personal choice rather than a health issue. So if we can try to change the minds and hearts of people to understand that this is a health issue, I think that those people that are working with us in the ER and those people that are working with us directly will hopefully see things a little bit differently. And that's where having recovery coaches in there, at least you have somebody that's showing some compassion, some understanding, because they've been there. They've seen what happens. And I've certainly been to the ERs where I've seen people treated very, very poorly. And I've also seen some people being treated very, very well as a result of good doctors and nurses. So it is tough, but I think definitely having more training and more understanding that this is a health issue, not a personal, moral failing, is a big deal. And that's where people are doing marches, in their communities for recovery. People are doing more recovery events to try to help generate that understanding and support for people in recovery. So it's kind of an exciting time. I feel like it's kind of slowly been going, but I think it's kind of getting to that point where people are just fed up and they're like, you know what, we need to do some more things in our community, because this is where people are coming back to after treatment, after prison, after jail, and so we want them. The whole community benefits as a result of people getting sober. As people get sober, they're 10 times more likely to, volunteer in their community. They're less likely to go to jail, less likely to go to the ER. They're less likely to utilize community resources. They're more inclined to volunteer and pay back their taxes, and there's all these positive things that happen as a result of somebody getting sober. So why aren't we doing more in our community to make sure that happens? And part of the thing that motivates me is that 5 years of recovery. If somebody gets 5 years of recovery, the chances of relapse goes down to 15%. So part of this recovery coaching is the training itself, I think, is important for anybody that's in recovery to take. You'll get networked. You'll have a lot of other people there that will, be your friend long after the training ends. And plus, it's giving people that extra, insulation for their recovery, just a little bit, whatever that is for somebody. And then when people can get connected to a recovery coach in their community, hopefully we're trying to add that extra layer of support